Well, welcome back to another episode of the Cruise Conversations podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Frank.
And today's episode is episode number 89, and we're talking 5 major things you can't control on your upcoming cruise. Let's jump into it.
Well, I feel like this is a really good topic to get into today, Michael. I don't know about you, but there's a lot of things that could go wrong with your cruise and any travel, honestly. I think there's a lot of things that you truly can't control. And while we hope that you have a great cruise vacation, some of these things just could possibly happen, right? And so before we get into that, we do have some cruise news, some sad news, actually. Captain Kate from Celebrity is unfortunately leaving after 22 years with the Royal Caribbean Group. She said, "You may be wondering why I'm leaving. Simply put, life has an incredible way of reminding us what's important and changing up priorities." She said this happens to be one of those, and that her sailing days are not over. She just has too much salt in her veins to want to leave the sea behind. So that was the quote that she gave us. We don't really know. I know that obviously recently, unfortunately, her cat passed away, Bug, and everyone loves Bug. Kind of like the influencer of Celebrity Cruises is Kate and Bug. And so this is definitely going to be just kind of sad, honestly. But we'll kind of have to wait and see where she heads to next. She sounds like she's going to take some time to really just reflect and enjoy some time away from the ships. But who knows what will be in store. There were some interesting kind of predictions on Facebook this week that maybe she'll be joining a Icon class ship. But I definitely think that's probably not true at this point, just given the fact that she was already working with Royal Caribbean Group in the past. I don't think this would be like a major announcement if it was something like that. But I guess we'll have to kind of wait and see where she ends up. But definitely something sad there.
Yeah, Frank, I mean, I remember when she took over on Celebrity Beyond, and I feel like that's like really when like her social media presence really gained. She was doing like her captain logs at the time on social media. And yeah, like you said, also having her cat there on the ship. So yeah, she's going to be missed, and we'll see what happens, what she ends up doing next. Well, the next piece of news we have here, Frank, may actually affect one of our cruises coming up later this summer, and really anybody who's going to be sailing Alaska. You know, in Juneau, there were some federal cuts the past couple weeks, and the Mendenhall Glacier Visitor Center, they're down to 1 employee.
Oh my God.
They're on staff for the summer. And I mean, you got to think, this is a pretty decent sized visitor center for, like you said, I think there's projected to be 1.6 million people visiting Juneau. Obviously, Mendenhall Glacier is one of the more popular glaciers there in Juneau to go see. So it's interesting. I mean, like I said, this is kind of really just started to come out in the news. I know I was reading like some of the outfitters and excursion operators are like kind of contacting and like wondering if it's going to affect anything with them. And I know I read that I guess the Forest Service staff, there's still some of them that didn't get laid off or anything. They're trying to figure out how they can maybe allocate their services and resources here too this summer. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what comes out of this. I mean, just know, I guess if you're going to Juneau this summer, right now there's one person working at the visitor center.
Well, that'll be us, Mike. We'll have to go pay that one person a visit and thank them for their service, and maybe maybe we can volunteer a little bit there. We can help them out. But that is absolutely crazy that they've cut back that much. So hopefully we do get to have people visit Mendenhall Glacier, because it is one of those like legendary stops for a cruise if you do get to visit there. Our last piece of news for today, Royal Caribbean just dropped more short itineraries for 2026 and 2027. Some of you guys are probably laughing that we're talking about 2026 and 2027, but it will be here before you know it. And a lot of our clients are booking super far in advance. We've already booked like, I think 2026 and 2027 cruises at this point. So crazy that we're already doing this. But the crazier thing is that Royal Caribbean is really doubling down again on these short itineraries. We saw Harmony of the Seas now is going to be moving over to Port Canaveral, which is super interesting to me, moving obviously over to that port and then running a 5-night sailing to Cozumel and Coco Cay. I think this is really cool to do this itinerary. They used to be done, I think, on Voyager of the Seas, but now this is going to be taken over by Harmony of the Seas, and then Oasis of the Seas will also be shifting to the 3-night and 4-night sailings, as well as, Utopia And we also have Wonder of the Seas doing those, and then eventually shifting over to 7 nights. But it really is crazy how much they're putting into these short cruises. It just goes to show that this little experiment with Utopia of the Seas and Wonder of the Seas it's going really well, right? They're making a lot more money. It's really breaking them into this new, hey, I want to test Royal Caribbean out, but I'm not sure I could do an Oasis class for 7 night crowd, right? People that are like wanted to dip their toes in that. And so it's just kind of wild to see that they're really putting a lot of ships into this. And we've been texting Michael about it a lot lately and kind of chatting about it. So, it's definitely interesting. And with all of the new Icon class ships, you can see that the Icon, Legend, Star, those are the ones where they're really going to be running the 7 nights. And then you'll have like, if you don't go with one of them, your next option is going to be like Adventure of the Seas or something. So they're making it difficult if you do want to go on a 7 night to go on like an Oasis class, because there's just, I guess Symphony will be doing potentially from New York. There's just not, they're really doubling down on the short cruise market. And maybe it's just the ports and trying to get some of their smaller ships into some of the cooler ports on the 7 nights. It's just going to be interesting to see how this all pans out. But definitely proving that their little experiment with a 3 and 4 night cruises on large ships is really working for them.
Yeah, and I think it's something too we've kind of just seen, and now obviously Wonder's a little newer, so it doesn't really fit this mold completely. But as ships start to get older, they do start to not do as much of the week longs, and like you said, kind of do some of the shorter ones. And then as new ships come into the fleet, obviously, like you said, the Star, the Icon, the Legend, all of them are going to be doing the 7 nights. So yeah, I mean, like you said, we were texting earlier, we were texting Blake too, and even he was on the Allure cruise with us, and it was one of his first time cruising in years. And he was like, it's much easier for me to go get on a 3 or 4 night cruise on, like you said, any of these not new Oasis class ships, but Oasis class ships doing these shorter sailings now versus trying to, get away for a week.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I'm excited to get on Harmony again, just being that it was out of Galveston for so long, and try some of these Oasis class ships that are moving around in the next couple of years. So that's going to be great. We also are experimenting like with a way to see, just going off of our group's comment, we're experimenting with a way to allow you guys to see what we can see in terms of these price advantages. Like Michael and I were quoting some people this week, and we saw like $1,400 price advantages, $2,000 price advantages on some of these Oasis class cruises coming up. So we're experimenting with a way for you guys to log in or even go onto like a Google sheet and see the same deals that we see. So if you're like, I don't want to text them and bother them, but I just want to see what exactly they can see, just stay tuned. We'll come with more information on that in the coming weeks. But Michael, we have a really good topic. I think this is a really cool one, so I'm excited to dive into, a couple of different things that you really can't control on your upcoming cruise.
All right, Frank. Well, the first thing we have on our list of things you really can't control on your upcoming cruise is the weather. If you're sailing next week, you can't control if it's going to be sunny out, if it's going to be raining out, and it's something you're just going to have to kind of deal with at the end of the day. Now, most of the time when you're down there in the Caribbean, you may see some dark clouds in the distance, and you may have some rain pass through 10, 20 minutes over you. But, I mean, most of the time, then it passes. And even if you're kind of down in Florida, during the summer, it's a real common thing during the day. So if you see rain in the forecast for the week of your cruise, don't let it make you sad or disappoint you, because like you said, it may just pass through for a little and then be done. Now, there are a couple things you can do. Like if you're the type of person who, doesn't want to risk sailing, for example, during hurricane season, don't book during hurricane season. Now, there's the risk of a couple different things during hurricane season. I mean, obviously, heavier waves. The ships are going to try to avoid and kind of stay behind or get ahead of the storm. But, that could also affect your itinerary length, and you may have to stick down in the Caribbean an extra day or two before coming back up. We've mentioned in the past, I think we've done a whole episode on sailing during hurricane season, but kind of just the pros and cons of that. And then if you're the type that doesn't want to be out in 100+ degree weather down in the Caribbean, obviously, don't book in the middle of the summer. Book either early spring or later fall. Yeah. Go sail Alaska for the summer. But so at the end of the day, weather you can't truly control, but like I said, you can kind of book around different times of the year to help with this.
Yeah, that's a great point, Michael. And I think you kind of led into the second one a good bit there in terms of The second thing you really can't control on your cruise is the itinerary. And I think some of that has to do with weather. That's probably the one thing you're like, oh, the ship can't dock. But the bigger one that I'm thinking about too is like, you're seeing it right now in Puerto Rico. You're seeing it right now in St. Martin, like where there's issues with the port itself, or even Labadee, right, where they had to shut down Labadee. Like there's things that happen in the world, whether it's with the port itself or with the island or with that country, that prohibit you from being able to stop there. And we have clients that are texting us that are like, I've got a cruise coming up that's supposed to go to, Puerto Rico or supposed to go to St. Martin, and I really booked it for this, but the truth of the matter is that part of your cruise contract that you basically agree to when you make a booking is that the itinerary is not guaranteed. Basically, you're just paying for a floating hotel, and the itinerary is subject to change based on what's going on in the world, right? Like we saw this a lot too with the Middle East last year, a couple years ago, where the cruise lines had to pull back and change itineraries, and it's very common, right? So I think that when you're thinking about things you can't control, obviously your ideal situation when you book the cruise is that you're going to have these 3 stops. It's going to give your excursions and all that. But the truth of the matter is you're not guaranteed your itinerary, and that it could very well change either before you get on the ship and you can find out via email, or it could change when you're on board the ship just due to weather and last minute conditions or things that are changing in the environment right before you hit that stop.
Yeah, Frank, that example of Puerto Rico was a great example. I just saw a comment today. Someone said that their cruise in June already, I mean, that's months away here from now, already got diverted from Puerto Rico to, I forget where exactly. And like I said, that's one of the cruise ports I'm looking to get back to. I've been looking at the World America sailings, or the specific one that goes to Puerto Rico. And at this point, I feel like I just have to wait a little. I just got to wait to officially hear that the ports open back up to have these ships there before I put my booking down. Because like you said, at the end of the day, it's in the cruise contract and it's not guaranteed. So the third point we have down is the crew. The crew on the ship could make or break your cruise. At the end of the day, I feel like most all of my sailings, I've had great crew. But you do sometimes hear in Facebook groups or something like that, people either have a bad room steward or feel like a bartender was grumpy, or I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to think, people that work on the ships, they're just people too. And there could be a couple of things. I mean, some people may complain about like dinner service, for example. Oh, it was slow. Well, you got to think, maybe that crew, your assistant waiter and head waiter, maybe they just started working together. The way their contracts work, people are coming and leaving the ship all the time. So I think at sometimes you got to extend a little grace, right? Extend grace to the crew in general, because like you said, if they really just started working together, I mean, you can't hold that against them at the end of the day. And and maybe some are kind of just towards the end of their contracts, right, and are just burnt out or ready to go home at the end of the day. You got to think they're employees just like employees anywhere else that you may experience on land, right? So it's just another thing you really shouldn't let get to you personally, because at the end of the day, you're probably going to experience a lot more positive, great crew members than ones that are really going to kind of bring you down and affect your vacation.
Yeah, that's a great point, Michael. Like, you're going to encounter so many great crew members on board your ship. You may have some that are just not having a good day, but put yourself in their shoes, right? They work really long hours, and even us at home, there's days where we're not having it, right? Something irritates us or something, and you're like even going through the motions, or you're at your job and you're like, I'm not having a great day. So it's the same situation. And so I think, as long as you give people a positive attitude back, especially with the crew, the likelihood you are to get someone to give you that back, that energy back. And it's funny, like if you look at the people that complain about the crew the most, and I think Jason called this out, it's the people that I think are ungrateful, that treat them kind of like, it's not always that way, but I feel like a lot of times it is. If you treat someone well and say, you're walking through the hallway and you're like, hey, I hope you have a great day, you're most likely going to get that back. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah.
Have a great time in Coco Cay today. Like if you just walk by them and whatever, like they're just not going to, it's just what you get back, right? So I think that's a really good one. The next one I have on the list that you can't control on your upcoming cruise is the quality of the food. I really think this is a big one. we've been on so many cruises, Michael, and we say, hey, this is one of our favorite dishes. And we tell people, like, when we book cruises, hey, make sure you grab the French onion soup, or make sure you grab, the bao bun tacos, or whatever it is, right? Like, we're like, hey, these are our favorite things. But the truth of the matter is, like, the crew, there's a lot of factors, right? Like, none of us can control it. Even the cruise line, they may have fresh cut fries on this sailing, and then the next sailing, it's a completely different fry that they have at this restaurant, right? And a lot of it could be related to supply chain issues. It could be, again, crew that are impacting this. It could be just availability of, or how much things that people are ordering at that restaurant, right? They may be running out and have to default to something else. So it really is a frustrating one, because I feel like in the cruise industry, food is one of those things that's so variable, and it's just something you can't control. Like, again, I think my mom went on Utopia within a month, and she was like, I went to 150 and it was amazing, best restaurant. And then she went back a month later and she was like, it was okay. Like, it wasn't, and it's like the same ship, 30 days apart, and it just wasn't the same, right? Like, whether it was her servers or it was probably, she said the food quality wasn't good. So overall, it's just crazy that the food can change that much in such a short period of time. And I've even heard of people like going back to the same restaurant on the same cruise, like, oh, I had a really good dinner at Chops, so I booked it again, and it wasn't the same the second time. So it's like, that's just so wild that the food varies that much. And it's just one of those things that you can't control, unfortunately.
Yeah, Frank, I have a story even with this too. At my family on Mardi Gras years ago, we ate at the Italian restaurant, like one of the first days of the cruise, I think like the second day.
Yeah.
And the service was super slow. The food was just average at the end of the day. And by the end of the week, it was probably the worst just dinner we had all week long. And like the last night of the cruise, my mom was like, let's go back there. Let's give it another try. And it was like a complete 180. It ended up being like one of the best meals of the cruise. So it's just like you said, you said your mom a 30-day span, and even like you said, some people go on the steakhouse and it's completely different. So yeah, I can connect with that too. Like I said, had two totally different experiences. And like you said, maybe it's just the servers you have, or maybe it's just food quality at the end of the day. All right, Frank. Well, the last one we have on our list is other guests. You can't control who's going to, you can control who's in your party cruising with you, but you can't really control who else is going to be on the ship with you. You're going to have some people that are just going to be super noisy, partying throughout the entire cruise, maybe treating a week-long cruise like it's a booze cruise. You may be in your late 20s, early 30s without kids, and you see kids running around everywhere in large families. Like you said, you really can't control who is sailing on the ship. Now, Frank, I think you have a good story for us with this, right?
Yeah, it's a decent story. I'm not going to oversell it, but I think when I was thinking about other guests, and I think you put this point down, like, we booked Icon. It was a really great cruise. I would say the biggest negative that we had with our Icon of the Seas cruise last year was it was super noisy. By far the noisiest room that we've ever had. And the funny thing is, like, when people reach out and they're like, hey, I want to book a room, and we find the right room for them, we always say, don't book under the pool deck, look around the public spaces. But we did all that. We had a perfect room that was, there was nothing above us. We even called guest services and we're like, can you guys stop making the noises? And they're like, we're not making any noises. Like, there's not even anything near you that's that's private crew only areas. It's just people above you. And it was constant, like, the entire week, of just kids just running and jumping off the bed and the couches. Like, it sounded like they had like a trampoline going on up there. Like, and we were like, it'd be like 4:00. We're like, oh, let's take a quick nap. Like, couldn't sleep. And then every night, like, same thing, couldn't sleep. So it was and they gave us some onboard credit and stuff, but still, this is one of those things where it's like, we can't control that we booked, room 821, whatever room we had, and there were people above us that were doing this. And same thing with the guest services. Like, sometimes they can't control that. Obviously, they can knock on the door and tell them or call them and say, hey, you guys need to stop. But it really is one of those things that you truly can't control on your cruise.
All right, Frank. Well, you hinted that you may have a bonus point for us here.
Yeah, we said 5, but I think I came up with another one. The other thing, number 6, we'll say this is bonus. The other item I feel like you really can't control, which kind of goes along with itinerary, but your entertainment schedule. And I think that we've been on some cruises, right? And we're like, oh, we wish that, the love and marriage show, like all of that aspect of a cruise, like when something happens, or even like a show that you were dying to see. Like I think I went on a cruise with you and Scotty and Teller and everyone, and they usually do Grease, and one of the actors I think was hurt or something, and they had to alter the Grease show, I believe, right? They
Yeah.
cut it back to like basically they didn't do any dancing or anything. It was mostly just sitting and singing. And so like that stuff, even the entertainment, right? We can't control that. The cruise line really can't control it other than just being prepared for all the situations. And I think they do a really good job of like trying to do that. I remember we talked about Icon. They said they had like 30 different iterations of their aqua show in case it's windy or in case someone gets hurt and they have to cut this portion. Like they have all these different iterations of the show that they memorize in order to be prepared. But ultimately, if the show happens, or if the show gets moved to another day and it interferes with your dinner, or all of that stuff is just so out of everyone's hands, out of your control. So really coming in with an open mind, being flexible is sort of the name of the game when it comes to cruising. And I think that was kind of the wrap up of this episode, was like we really wanted to give you a couple things to consider when you are going on a cruise, just to level set expectations on the things that just be prepared for, right? Maybe you won't have bad weather. Maybe you won't have other guests that are bothering you. Maybe you'll have perfect crew and your itinerary is going to be great, and the food's going to be perfect and the entertainment's going to go smoothly. But some of these things may happen on your upcoming cruise, and so we wanted to at least give these as something to consider before you go on your cruise, just to have to just have those expectations in the right spot, that something may not be perfect, and these are some of the things that you really can't control.
Well, that's awesome, Frank. Can't say it any better myself. Let's jump into some question and answer. We had one fan submit a question this week, and then I have a surprise question for you that I haven't told you yet, and we'll see what you say to that.
I'm nervous.
Well, our first question is from Peyton. Peyton said, I'm going on Icon in June. Should I head to the pool first and get a good spot, or explore the ship?
First of all, I'm jealous.
Oh, I am too. So I'm going to act like I am on Icon with you, Peyton, in June. I think I'm still going to do my typical day one on a ship. Especially, I'm guessing this is your first time sailing Icon. I would personally go explore. Get on the ship early. That's one tip we always kind of throw out there. And then kind of go explore the entire ship. I mean, especially when there's not as many people on there yet. Go eat lunch somewhere. Frank, is the Aquadome Market open on boarding day?
Yeah, it's open.
Okay, so I'm going to explore the ship a little. I'm going to go grab lunch at the Aquadome Market. And then eventually, once my room's open, I'm going to go to my room, drop off any bags or stuff that I brought on the ship. And then I'm going to go to the pool pretty much from the being done in the room till it's time to go to dinner.
Michael, it's like you memorized my Icon vlog with Scotty, and this is exactly what we did. I think we got on the ship, we explored, had drinks, made our dining reservations, and then I think we went to Aquadome Market, continued exploring, and then our room was ready, dropped that stuff off, and then went on the water slides and went to the pool. So you literally just said everything we did, and I thought it was a perfect first day. So I probably wouldn't change anything. You're going to have no problem getting a spot by the pool on the first day. If you're really concerned about it, I would say cut the exploring down, make sure you have your bathing suit in your backpack, go straight to get food around 11 o'clock. Maybe explore the ship a little bit, get your stuff, get your seats by the pool, and then you can always go back to the room and unpack. Personally, like you, Michael, what you were saying, I really like to unpack pretty early and kind of drop off. Like we had my drone, we had a bunch of stuff in the bag, so it was really nice to unpack that like really early on, just to not have to carry and lug that around the ship. But I will say, Peyton, if you like water slides, do that on day one. Do that on any of the port days, because that is when it's going to be the shortest lines. I bet you could ride probably every single slide on that first day after you have lunch. So just a little tip, while everyone else is getting settled and no one has their bathing suits, plan on doing that. I think it's a good use of time if that is something that you are interested. But totally jealous that you're going to be on Icon soon. I am so ready to get back on an Icon class ship. So that's awesome.
All right, Frank, my question I have for us. Now, this is in honor of the Survivor 48 premiere tonight.
Oh, gosh. I know nothing. I know zero about Survivor, but hopefully our listeners know something, I guess.
No, you're good. You don't need to know anything about Survivor. Now, what I will tell you is coming up this spring, they're doing a Survivor-themed cruise, right? And they're going to have a bunch of contestants from the show kind of on the sailing, doing all different meet and greets, all different things throughout it. I think they kind of do this yearly. Now, what may affect this is they're going to be filming Survivor 50 this spring. So if you watch Survivor, there's kind of rumors of if some contestants drop out from the cruise, maybe they're going to film the show. But to get to the question I have here, Frank, if you had to theme a cruise, whether it's a full charter cruise or just a portion of the ship, what are you theming your cruise to? I'll give you a second to think. I have my answer ready because, like I said, it's my question. Do you want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the other big shows right now is The Traitors. I'm thinking a 3 or 4 night cruise where The Traitors plays out on the sailing. Now, obviously, let's say you have hundreds and hundreds of people on the sailing. They break you down into groups of 20. And then throughout the sailing, you're doing different challenges during the day. You're having your round tables and trying to pick out who the traitors are. The traitors murder people at night. And then you have your breakfast in the morning when it's revealed to you. So I think playing the traitors on a cruise ship could be a blast.
All right. I think 2 things come to mind. I think the obvious one for me is probably sports related because I do watch a lot of sports. I like golf personally. So I think there's only putt-putt on a lot of these cruises. There's not like a full golf course, but it really could be cool to like create, your own kind of putt-putt courses, or even do something where like you set up simulators in like different venues to like kind of play golf more on a cruise ship. I think that would be really cool. And like potentially people would play, and then you do it over like a big weekend, like Masters weekend. So like part of it is you playing golf and competing with other people, like you do tournaments and stuff, but then you also watch like a big event like the Masters together. And that would be really, really cool where you like rent out a really big venue like the Aqua Dome or something like that. So that's my first idea. I think that would be kind of fun. My second idea, which is a bit more weird, I would say, I've been getting into more Broadway shows. We just saw Hamilton a couple weeks ago in Charlotte, which was amazing. Really liked that with some friends. I could see like a really cool, like bringing on like different shows, since I really love that about cruising, but every night is a big Broadway type show. So, obviously you got Mamma Mia night 1, we really liked, and then you do like Grease, and you do like even like a show like Hamilton. It would just be really intense, probably because they have to do all these different sets, but almost like a tribute to like the best Broadway shows ever made. But all of them are in like a big main theater, and maybe you do like, instead of the activities that would normally be on the cruise, like they're doing it like 3 times a day. So like you have a 1 o'clock, like a 5 o'clock, and then like a 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock show. And that's kind of like the whole theme of the cruise, because I really do, like I said, I love going to the shows on cruises, and that would be like kind of another cool idea. So completely different, one sports related, one like show and entertainment related, but I think both of those could be cool. Well, Michael, thanks for the question. That was fun.
Yeah, I mean, your answers are great. Like you said, we both love sports, and even the Broadway one too. I mean, now you don't have to go on 5 or 6 royal ships. You can just go on one and get it all in your week.
You'd have to like find people that know those, you know what I mean? Like that are experts in that area, or somehow bring them on that they've done that role before. It'd be like a crazy coordination to figure out who can like be on the ship that week to perform, but it'd be kind of cool. Well, Michael, this is going to wrap up this week's episode of the Cruise Conversations podcast. We talked a lot about booking, so if that's you, if you're sitting at home or you're listening in the car and you're interested in getting pricing on a cruise, you're thinking about cruising this year, next year, 2026, 2027, we'd love to help you price it out, make sure you get the best deal, but also get as much onboard credit as possible, and also you get to work with us as you plan your dream vacation. So if you're interested, make sure you shoot us a text at 704-313-8556. You can also send us an email at cruiseconversations@gmail.com, or you can fill out the Jot form, which is in the description of this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you back here